There's a question that I used to ask my students a lot in our sessions, which is, what's stopping you? And they would tell me things like, my grammar isn't good enough, I don't know enough vocabulary, I need to practice more. And I would nod along and we would work on the things that they needed to improve. But something just always felt a little bit off. Like there was something in the way that I couldn't really exactly pinpoint. Then I moved to Paris, and within 3 weeks of living here, I knew exactly what that feeling was. Because suddenly, I had it too. Today, I want to share with you the 5 things that learning French in Paris taught me about my English students. Things that I could not have understood any other way. And if you're learning English at an intermediate level, like maybe B1, B2, or you're starting to reach an advanced level, but for some reason you feel stuck even though you've improved a lot, then this video is specifically for you. The first thing that I started noticing whenever I was learning French seriously was that my progress and confidence were completely out of sync. My French was improving, I could definitely feel it. My comprehension was getting sharper, and I was catching words that I usually miss. Objectively, in French, I was getting better. But no, I didn't feel more confident. If anything, I felt aware that I didn't know so much. I was actually more self-conscious than I ever imagined. And I see this constantly with my English students. They would come back to me after months of working hard and say something like, I feel like I haven't improved much. And when I would test them, I would see that they absolutely have improved. Here's what's actually happening to you whenever you're getting better. Your standards rise with you too. You start noticing the gap between where you are and where a native speaker is. A gap you couldn't even see before because you weren't advanced enough to see it yet. That feeling of I'm not improving is actually a sign that you're leveling up enough to see further. What I actually think is that progress and confidence have a delay between them. You have to trust the progress while you wait for the confidence to catch up. My French comprehension is actually not that bad. I can read a menu, I can follow a conversation, and I can understand what most of my colleagues are saying when they're patient with me. But the moment that I have to produce the language, whether it's to speak or respond to a real conversation, I fall completely apart in a way that it's not because I don't know the language. And this was a second big lesson. We treat language learning like it's one skill, when in fact it's not. Understanding English and speaking English uses completely different parts of your brain, and it requires a completely different type of practice. I've worked with students that can read an English novel like it's no problem, but they cannot order food in a restaurant. And I used to think, wait, how is that possible? But now I completely understand. Reading and listening are receptive. You're taking in the language at your own pace. You can rewind and you can reread. Speaking, however, is real-time, unpredictable, and very exposing. There's no rewind button for speaking. If you only practice English by watching Netflix or reading articles, it's of course very helpful, but you're only training half the skills. The speaking muscle is completely separate, and it has to be trained separately. It only gets stronger by actually using it, which is why a lot of people avoid doing it. Something I completely did not expect whenever I moved to Paris was that the people around me would affect how I would feel about the language. Whenever I'm with patient people, those who slow down and let me take my time to respond and listen to them, of course I enjoy the language more because I'm able to find the right words at my own pace. And in the end, I speak so much better and more confidently. I feel much more comfortable taking risks and trying new sentences that I didn't before. And strangely enough, I even felt advanced. However, whenever I'm with impatient people who switch to English the moment they hear my accent, or those who feel a little bit more judgmental, I have a difficult time searching for the right word or even making an effort, and I shut down completely. My French doesn't really get worse per se, but my willingness to do it does. And this made me think of every English student that would ever tell me, I speak better with some people, but not with others. I used to explain that away as familiarity or confidence, but it's definitely more than that. Your environment is not neutral. The people that you are practicing English with are either expanding or shrinking your confidence. If everyone around you switches to your native language whenever you're trying to practice English, you would never build the discomfort that fluency actually requires. This is one of the most underrated reasons to work with a coach, not just for the language, but for having one person in your life who is completely on your side with learning English, or someone who will patiently wait it out. That space is rarer than people think. Some days my French is genuinely good. I have a full conversation, I make someone laugh, and I feel more like myself. Other days, I can barely put a sentence together. The words that were available yesterday are just gone today, and I feel like I lost everything that I had worked so hard for. I think I used to spiral on those days. Like maybe I'm not a natural language learner, or maybe I'm too old for this. Maybe I should just give up and keep using English in Paris. But actually, here's what I've come to understand about it. Bad language days are almost not about the language itself. They're about sleep, stress, emotional bandwidth, or how safe you feel in an environment. The language is fine, but sometimes the condition is not. My students have bad English days too. And when they do, they tend to take it as evidence that they're failing in English. A bad day feels like a verdict. It isn't. It's just data. It's your brain telling you something about your current state, and not your permanent ability. Make sure to track your good days as much as you track your bad days. You'll start to see a pattern that has really little anything to do with your English. and a lot to do with everything else going on in your life. This is the one thing that took me the longest to learn, and honestly, I'm still learning it. When I first started learning French, I had in my mind of what success looked like. It of course looked like a French person, a perfect pronunciation with a natural rhythm and a zero accent, and that goalpost of course made every interaction feel like a performance review. Every time I opened my mouth, I kept on measuring myself against an imaginary French person and just feeling like I was coming up way too short. But then one evening I was having dinner with a group of friends. It was a mix of French people and international people, and we were just laughing along, speaking in French, sometimes switching to English. And yes, sometimes we did misunderstand each other and we would laugh a lot. And I thought, this is it. This is what I actually wanted. To actually connect and feel understood. To feel more like myself in the conversation. I think most of my English students, kind of like myself, we were chasing the wrong goalpost. They want to sound native, but native is actually not the point. Connection is the point. Being able to say what you mean and mean what you say and feel like a complete human being doing it. That's fluency, and that is the real target that we should all achieve for. And here's what's true. An intermediate or advanced level English speaker who speaks with a lot of warmth and a lot of personality, they're the ones that will really bridge the connection and sound fluent. They may have an accent, but it's not a barrier to connection at all. If I could go back in time and tell every English student that I had coached for before I moved to Paris, it would be this. I thought I understood what you were going through. I had empathy and I tried to imagine it, but I didn't fully know until I arrived here. Now I know what it feels like to reach for a word and not being able to find it. To be able to understand everything but not being able to say anything. And to feel like a reduced version of yourself in another language. And I want you to know that it does. It eventually will. Maybe not so perfectly like your native language, enough to be funny again, enough to connect with someone, enough to even disagree and have a different point of view, or enough to tell a story and say something completely true. I think that's what we are all working towards. Not perfection, just enough. If this conversation really resonated with you and you want to work with someone who genuinely gets what you're going through, then my coaching details are linked below in the description. And I would love to hear from you in the comment section. Which of these lessons really hit close to home for you? Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you really enjoy listening to these type of videos.